Under the veneer of manicured lawns and gleaming mailboxes, Lakeside Pines was sold as suburban bliss. But for retired diplomat Michael Johnson and his daughter Amy, it would become a battleground for justice. On one sweltering summer night, HOA Security Chief Curtis Wilson leveled a Glock at Amy's forehead, mistaking an FBI tactical commander for a trespasser. What began as a terrifying parking dispute ignited a chain reaction. Protocols challenged, alliances formed, and a quiet community transformed into a crucible of power, corruption, and reform. This is the story of how a seasoned negotiator and his battle-hardened daughter uncovered systematic abuse of authority, built an unlikely coalition, and toppled a homeowners association tyrant. From midnight garden vandalism to emergency board meetings, from clandestine recordings to FBI raids, witness how 5 days of escalating intimidation sparked a movement for transparency that reshaped not only Lakeside Pines, but set a precedent for communities everywhere. Lakeside Pines stood silent under the July stars, its gated entrance echoing promises of security and luxury. Michael Johnson, a 58-year-old retired diplomatic officer, admired the pristine lawns from his living room window. He had chosen this Connecticut enclave after 3 decades navigating foreign capitals, seeking peace after his wife's passing. Yet the neighborhood's polished brochure concealed iron-fisted HOA rules enforced by Robert Thompson and his handpicked security detail. Michael's daughter, Special Agent Amy Johnson, arrived at 10 p.m. after a 2-year counter-terrorism assignment abroad. Although he provided her gate code, he forgot to alert Curtis Wilson, the HOA's ex-cop turned security chief. A soft scuffle outside drew Michael to the door. Through the porch light's glare, he saw Curtis's muzzle pointed staunchly at Amy's face, gloved finger hovering over the trigger. Beside him, partner Jason pressed anxiously on his holster. "Mr. Unidentified non-resident. Get on the ground," Curtis barked, voice thick with misplaced authority. Amy raised her hands, calm as if briefing trainees in Quantico. In that instant, Michael's world froze. The man behind the gun was neither intruder nor criminal. He was sworn to protect this very community. "Dad, stay back," Amy whispered. Beneath her composed stance, she instantly recognized Curtis's Glock 19 as unlicensed for private security work. He refused to lower the weapon until Michael interposed himself, shielding Amy. "That's my daughter, agent with FBI," he shouted, cutting off Curtis's tirade about security protocols. At last, Curtis hesitated. Amy broke the silence. "Mr. Wilson, pointing a firearm at an unarmed person, especially a federal agent, is felony assault. And you lack proper weapons licensing." Curtis's face reddened, arrogance flickering into doubt. "Different rules on private property," he snarled, holstering at last. Michael ushered Amy inside. "I'm sorry," he stammered. "I thought this place promised safety." Amy's trained eyes took in every detail. Uniforms, binoculars stashed on the rail, neighbors' curtains twitching. "This is just a symptom," she said. "Tomorrow, I'll meet Linda Peterson. She's one of the few neighbors brave enough to question Thompson's regime." That night, over iced tea, they catalogued every HOA bylaw clause and security protocol. Michael, accustomed to diplomatic nuance, listened as Amy detailed her rise through the FBI's tactical ranks. "In my world," she said, "a trigger only falls when every other option is exhausted." Michael realized her words applied equally to their new domestic battlefield. By dawn, Michael had drafted an email to the HOA board, copying every member, demanding an explanation for Curtis's actions. He hit send, unleashing the first salvo in a conflict they would win not with bullets, but with evidence, alliances, and unshakable resolve. The morning sun revealed 2 HOA violation notices taped to their front door: unauthorized after dark guest, and unsightly porch lighting. Michael scoffed. Amy merely nodded. "Standard intimidation," she observed. "But every action leaves a trace." True to plan, Amy met Linda Peterson on the next block. At 65, the retired schoolteacher quietly collected whispered grievances, punitive lawn height inspections, watering schedules enforced with threats, and Sarah Thompson's social ostracism, neighbors summoned to ladies' teas, where dissenters were shut out. Linda also revealed a crucial detail. The contracted security company was owned by Sarah's brother, paying Wilson double standard rates while skirting background checks. Back at home, Amy buried herself in HOA bylaws and public records. Michael leveraged his diplomatic connections, discreetly contacting Officer James Rodriguez, an old academy friend on the local police force. Meanwhile, Amy secured a meeting with Jessica Miller, a reluctant HOA board attorney disturbed by the Thompson regime's secrecy. Over coffee, Jessica slipped Amy a USB drive containing 5 years of financial ledgers, board minutes with redacted passages, and invoices from vendors with names matching Sarah's family. Days passed in a blur of analysis. Michael and Amy pored over spreadsheets, hefty security fees funneled into offshore accounts, landscaping contracts awarded to shell companies, and mysterious community improvement line items with no matching work. A pattern emerged. The Thompsons had weaponized HOA fees for personal profit, while using Wilson's armed presence to silence critics. Amy installed covert cameras around their property, low-profile devices capturing every car that lingered outside at odd hours. On a late Thursday night, footage revealed Wilson and 2 guards in Amy's yard at 3 a.m., measuring grass height by flashlight. Later, they returned and uprooted flower beds before slipping away. Amy cataloged the timestamps, GPS-tagged stills, and audio clips of curt threats. That weekend, an impromptu garden restoration gathering on Michael's lawn surprised even them. Linda organized 30 neighbors wielding shovels and mulch. As they worked, stories poured out: arbitrary fines, selective enforcement, and social exile for raising questions. The gathering sent a clear message: dissent was no longer solitary. Inside, Amy convened a strategy session with Michael, Jessica, Officer Rodriguez, and financial crimes specialist Marcus Reed, flown in from FBI headquarters. Together they drafted a 3-phase plan: public exposure at the annual HOA meeting, formal complaints to state authorities, and, if necessary, federal referral for embezzlement and misuse of force. At dusk, Michael received a curt voicemail from Robert Thompson, an emergency meeting at the community center. His tone was smug. "Let's resolve these tensions face to face." Michael recognized the invitation as a trap to silence scrutiny. Still, he prepared with military precision, rehearsing his opening remarks, gathering evidence packets for distribution, and lining up allies to outnumber Thompson's loyalists. On Monday morning, Amy texted the group, "Phase 1 begins tonight. Bring your docs, your voices, and your cameras." That evening, the community center buzzed with tense anticipation. Rows of folding chairs filled with anxious homeowners. At the front, Robert Thompson lounged beside Sarah, Curtis standing guard in his ill-fitting uniform. The air smelled of stale coffee and power trips. Michael and Amy arrived early with Jessica, Officer Rodriguez, Marcus Reed, and Linda. They discreetly handed neighbors packets containing redacted financial excerpts, photographic evidence of Wilson's midnight raids, and a summary of relevant state laws on private security licensing. In hushed tones, residents braced for the showdown. Robert called the meeting to order with forced cheer. "We're here to address recent concerns about our community standards and security protocols," he announced, eyes flicking to Michael. "Let's proceed. First, proposed amendments to expand security access." When he finished his scripted pitch, Michael stood. "Point of order?" he asked, voice steady. Thompson's smile wavered. "As residents, we have the right under Bylaw 7.3 to review all expenditures and protocols before voting on amendments." He strode forward, distributing his own packets, evidence of shell company ties, bank transfer records, and security footage of Wilson's armed standoff with Amy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Robert's color drained. "This is hearsay," he stammered. Curtis bristled, hand twitching toward his holster. But Officer Rodriguez moved between them, a silent warning. Amy then connected her phone to the projector. Silence fell as the screen showed Curtis raising his Glock on her porch, followed by footage of flower beds reduced to mulch. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "this isn't protocol, it's intimidation. We deserve transparency and fair governance, not fear." Shouts broke out. Some residents cheered. Others called for Thompson's resignation. Sarah leapt to her feet, shrieking that the evidence was doctored, only to be drowned out by rising voices demanding due process. Robert lunged for the gavel, but Marcus Reed quietly revealed his FBI credentials. "I'm here on behalf of the Bureau to investigate potential financial crimes and misuse of force in this association," he announced. The room fell still as murmurs of "FBI" spread like wildfire. Curtis, enraged, charged at Michael, hand drifting toward his pistol. In a flash, Amy intercepted him, using a textbook disarm technique that sent Wilson crashing into the stage railing. He scrambled, defeated, as neighbors watched in stunned awe. Officer Rodriguez handcuffed Curtis for assault and illegal weapons possession. Robert and Sarah attempted to flee but were blocked by Jessica and Linda. "You're both named in these complaints," Jessica declared, reading charges of embezzlement, fraud, and civil rights violations. Sarah collapsed into sobs. Robert's face twisted in disbelief as local media crews streamed live. By night's end, Curtis was in custody, Thompson was under investigation by state authorities, and the HOA board had been temporarily suspended. Residents spilled into the warm summer air, united by relief and exhilaration. The Thompsons' regime had crumbled in a single dramatic meeting. In the weeks that followed, Lakeside Pines underwent its most profound transformation since its founding. Local newspapers, once sycophantic to HOA press releases, now featured front-page exposés on Thompson's embezzlement scheme and Wilson's criminal charges. State regulators audited the association's finances, civil suits for restitution were filed, and the community's reputation shifted from gated paradise to cautionary tale. Amy returned to her FBI duties in Washington, leaving Marcus Reed to shepherd the federal inquiry. Officer Rodriguez helped organize a special HOA election. Jessica Miller was elected president, with Linda Peterson as vice president. Their first acts were to rescind punitive bylaws, publish full financial reports online, and cap security fees at market rates with licensed providers only. Michael found solace in casual evening strolls, unshackled from the former regime's scrutiny. Neighbors greeted him by name, no longer forced to avert their eyes. Community potlucks replaced exclusionary teas. Children chased fireflies across newly restored flower beds. The once ominous gatehouse now displayed a simple sign: "Welcome to Lakeside Pines, managed by neighbors for neighbors." One afternoon, Sarah Thompson returned, this time as a humbled citizen seeking amends. She apologized to Michael and Amy, admitting she'd lived in fear of losing status. With genuine remorse, she offered to help with community events. Michael, ever diplomatic, accepted her apology as a step toward healing. At a summer barbecue marking the post-scandal healing, Amy addressed the crowd. "We didn't win through force, but by upholding transparency, rule of law, and community spirit. Our story shows that when power is abused, ordinary citizens, armed with evidence and courage, can reclaim their homes." Applause erupted as Marcus Reed and Officer Rodriguez stood by her side. Over the next year, Lakeside Pines became a model for HOA reform. Neighboring associations invited Jessica and Amy to speak. State legislators cited the scandal when drafting new HOA governance laws. The nonprofit Community Shield, founded by Amy with Michael on its advisory board, provided free legal and tactical awareness workshops nationwide, helping homeowners recognize and resist petty tyranny. On Amy's final weekend home before a new overseas assignment, father and daughter walked along the lakeshore at sunset. "I faced terrorists and bank robbers, Dad," Amy mused, tossing pebbles into the shimmering water, "but the fiercest battles can happen on your own front porch." Michael smiled, hand resting on her shoulder. "You taught me that diplomacy and tactical skill aren't so different. Both require patience, precision, and the courage to stand up for what's right." She nodded, watching the ripples fade into twilight. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is a community united. As they turned toward home, the lights of Lakeside Pines glowed warmly behind them, a testament to what can be achieved when neighbors refuse to be intimidated and insist upon justice, accountability, and respect.